What's happening, guys? This video, we are going to take a look at my first impressions review and test footage using this 1979 Vivitar 70 to 210mm Series 1 lens. You are watching Concept featuring yours truly. Recently got a set of lenses. This is the first time I've ever got I've had this lens. This is the kit lens that came with this, good old Canon EOS M. I got it back in like 2012 or 2013, and this guy today goes for less than 150 bucks. Okay, so the reason I had initially bought this was the fact that I would have the opportunity to use different set of lenses. But now, thing is, lenses are expensive. Like, even if I want to get some of the even kit lenses, they go for several $100s. But then recently I discovered I can get vintage lenses. This right here is an old school Canon FD lens. Now, if you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. It's just a different mount. This is an EOS M mount. This is an EOS M mount in terms of what goes in here. Currently, all the big Canon cameras that have an EF mount, whereas this is EOS M, same thing. So this is an FD mount. Basically, around the 80s, they stopped making these. So these lenses are probably as old as I am, if not older. But here's the best part. Now, this is the lens that I want to play with today. I got this bad boy for less than $30. The thing that makes it all work, what makes it all come together, this handy little adapter. And so what I typically do is first I gotta get this thing mounted on here. So I think it's the red dot, bam, just locked in. And then I just have to make sure that the thing here is on open mode. And then I take this bad boy and line it up here, and just gotta make sure that it's all lined up. Now it tends to be a little tricky in terms of getting it lined up. Now if I'm gonna be in a I gotta move fast kind of scenario, okay, now it's open. So hold on a second, boom, get that in there, come on, get it there. Okay, so it's weird, the red, okay, hold on, almost. Okay, there we go, bam. Now it's locked. Now I'm loaded, locked and loaded, ready to go. Sorry about the shake. Bam.
Guys, right here, my defense is this. I bring you this hand, I'll go to my shoulder.
Bring the hand to the shoulder.
Yes.
There you go.
Grab
the shoulder. Grab the shoulder. Up your hand. There you go.
I'll bring your elbow back and I go back. You don't hear both things first. Drop the hook. And do this. Just watch me to hook. So if I go to that side, the other one goes through. Because now our weight is right here, he can't roll. So if I roll like this, it's kind of dangerous. You have to put this here because sometimes he rolls to that side. So that's why I keep my weight on this side. He can't. If I do this, he'll roll to that side. But if you roll to that side, if I know that I start. That's why I want to do this.
Now go for it.
That grip on the hand doesn't let him finish. Once I get here, am I going to roll to that side? I'm going to end up on the bottom of the room. You hold it, now try to come facing. Once I get here, just need to bring my elbow, look how my elbow, press up. And I use my head, because my head's loose. On that side. I push forward.
This thing has an interesting characteristic when it comes to light, especially light coming into it. I mean, it's a lens, it's capturing light, but I'm talking about when there's sunlight, there's a little bit of a unique flaring. I think photographers would hate this characteristic, and I think this is why this 1979 lens is the first of its, I guess, I guess they had different versions of this, starting from 1979 going into the 80s. And this is the first version, considered to be the worst version. But I think it looks pretty good, especially for $30. So here I am, having tested this lens in a scenario where I have ample amount of lighting, fluorescent lights up top, sunlight pouring in. But what happens when I take it to a non-ideal scenario? I figured what better opportunity to do that than testing it out over at Islam in Spanish's new Centro Islamico location, where they're holding their first ever Friday services since the opening of this location. This is the footage that I got out of that. That footage is really shaky. So what I actually ended up having to do was essentially take that footage and run it through Adobe Premiere's Warp Stabilize, and then bring it back into my phone. Where's my phone? I have an app on here called Quick from GoPro. So what I do is I'll take all the footage. Either I'll transfer it directly from the camera onto my phone, or in this case, with the Centro Islamico video footage that I shot, I had to actually bring it into Premiere, run it through Warp Stabilize, export it, bring it back into my phone, and then run it through Quick so I can get a quick edit. This is the stabilized version of that footage.
فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى.
After Friday services, they announced that they're actually going to have a wedding. I figured, okay, well, what better opportunity to really push this thing to its limits than trying to shoot a wedding. My final thoughts on this bad boy. So number one, is it worth $30? Sure. Would I pay more than that? Well, now I know what this lens is, when it's from, what are the variations of this very lens within the same model. What's interesting is this is a Vivitar 70 to 2010 lens made for the Canon FD mount, right? So knowing that, and also learning about the fact that Vivitar had outsourced the making of this lens to different companies, whether it was Tokina or a few others. And so depending on which version you get from what year, this is the first version of that, considered to be the worst. It's not so bad for $30. However, if I were to spend more than that, I would consider a newer version of this lens. The other thing though, this is f3.5. Indoors in a poorly lit scenario, this is a challenge. This was a challenge for me ever since I've had it, because it came with the camera. And so I rarely would shoot indoors. And in fact, if I did shoot indoors, I would make the appropriate arrangements to have, some sort of lighting. Outdoors is just fine. Same thing here. In an appropriately lit setup, this is more than adequate. The challenge though, this thing is heavy. And in fact, about 30 minutes after constantly using this, with all that wrist action holding it up, especially with the kind of camera that I have, small, tiny mirrorless, which barely fits in my hand, this really fatigues out your arm. So would I consider this, or how would I run and gun with this? Well, one option is get a gimbal. I don't have one yet. Other option is get a monopod. I gotta buy that one too. I could use a tripod, but the tripod that I have is pretty large and clunky. And in fact, if you want to see what that looks like, just go back a few videos where I was up in Dallas doing a shoot, and you can see how big and clunky those tripods are. Those are the kind of tripods that you use to set and forget. And so for that reason, this lens is a challenge because it's heavy. But what's interesting is this vintage lens, in terms of weight and size, is actually, in relation to the modern electronic lenses, significantly smaller and maybe even lighter. So what I would consider for the future, and something that I do want to do, is trade up. I initially bought this with the intention of wanting to document my first jiu-jitsu tournament, which was supposed to be this July in Austin, but due to conflicts with family commitments and whatnot, I might need to postpone that to maybe September in Atlanta. Maybe this lens is not going to work out, because the initial intent was to be able to document that. But if I'm not able to do that, then it's time to trade up. And my intention in the long run is I do want a faster lens. This 3.5, relatively slow. Maybe get a 2.8. The lower the number, the more light I'm able to capture, and thus at the same time get maybe a potentially sharper image. Granted, the glass is good, but these are things that I would want to consider for the future. Maybe even get something better, maybe like a Tokina 2.8 or a Sigma 1.8. Maybe I'll get that lens in the future, but that's pretty expensive. It's a $600 lens. $600, $30. Maybe I'll set my budget to $200 and see what I can get from there. But until that time, enjoy. I'll see you soon.